Hey guys, my name is Rob, and today we're reviewing the Gulikit Elves 2 Pro. This is a wireless controller compatible with PC, Switch, and mobile. It's a retro style mini controller and one of two follow ups to the original Elves controller, as Gulikit simultaneously released both the Elves 2 and the Elves 2 Pro, which we have here. This gamepad was provided to me by Banggood.com, who reached out and asked if I would be interested in receiving it in exchange for an honest review, and I was very happy to do so since this will be my first Elves controller. So let's open it up and check it out. The packaging is very minimal, but the gamepad is well protected as it comes in this hard shell carrying case. In terms of accessories, there's not much, but we do have a USB-A to USB-C cable. This is a short, non-braided cable, so really just meant for charging. Then we have a GuliKit sticker, a GuliKit product pamphlet advertising some of their other items, and then we have the user manual, which is actually really nice. It's a pretty large booklet style manual that's also in color, and honestly one of the better product manuals I've seen with a third party controller. Then we have the controller, which again comes in this hard shell traveling case, which is great. It has a cutout for pass through charging, and it's just super convenient for storing the controller or tossing it in a backpack or travel bag, so I love to see that. The gamepad itself reminds me of a Genesis controller in terms of the shape and form, though obviously the inputs are much different, but clearly retro styling here. GuliKit also offers this colorway option, which pushes that theme even further, but I actually like this black one. It's just a simpler, sleeker design. As far as features and components, we have membrane face buttons, which feel fine, though they are a bit loud. You'll notice that they're also in the Switch style layout, which I'm pretty okay with that, as I could easily see this being a gamepad I use primarily with the Switch. We have an 8-way membrane D-pad, which is sort of large in comparison to the other components of the controller, and it actually feels really good. This is one of two big design changes from the original Elves controller, which had a standard 4-way cross D-pad design, and I actually really like this. I'm looking forward to trying it out. The other big design change is the symmetrical thumbstick layout, so the D-pad position is different. The original Elves controller was asymmetrical like an Xbox controller. The sticks themselves are Hall effect, which is great, though GuliKit does make some very good TMR sticks, so would love to have seen TMRs in the Elves 2 Pro, but I wouldn't necessarily have expected it in a cheaper retro style controller. The sticks feel fine for what they are. They have higher tension, which I do like, though this is partially because they're a bit shorter than standard thumbsticks, and they also have a shorter range of motion. I don't expect that'll be an issue for the games I'll likely play with the Elves 2 Pro, but I also don't think I'll be trying to play FPS games with it. Other front inputs include the home button, the plus or menu button, the minus or view button, the settings or function button, the capture or screenshot button, the autopilot gaming or APG button, and the pairing button. Up top we have the shoulder buttons, which are kind of oddly shaped. They're really narrow to accommodate the small form factor of the gamepad, but despite that they actually feel really good. The triggers are tactile on-off switches, so we don't have linear triggers here, which honestly is fine with me, though I do know that could be a deal breaker for some people. Aside from that, these also feel good. The design and shape is comfortable, and they feel pretty nice to actuate. On the back, we have a 3-position mode switch, so far right is Nintendo Switch, far left is PC, and the middle position says iOS, but it's also compatible with Android devices. Below that is the off button, which I probably don't need to explain, but yeah, pressing that button will turn the gamepad off. Now we'll take a look at operation and settings. To turn on the Elves 2 Pro, press the home button or any one of the face buttons. To pair the controller, long press the pairing button, and the indicator light will blink rapidly in pairing mode. The Elves 2 Pro only supports Bluetooth mode for wireless play, which you probably assumed since it didn't come with a USB dongle. I have the mode switch in PC mode here to connect to the PC, but it will also connect to PC and Nintendo Switch mode. It'll just show up as a wireless Pro controller rather than an Xbox wireless controller. The Elves 2 Pro supports 6-axis gyro control, and on Switch the gyro function is always enabled, but if you're playing on PC in X input mode, you do have to enable the gyro function. This is a little bit limited as far as options. You can map the gyro to either the left button or the left trigger. You do this by simultaneously pressing the function button and either the left bumper or trigger, and you can repeat this process to change the gyro sensitivity. So by default, gyro is disabled, and the first time you press settings in one of the two target buttons, it will enable low sensitivity gyro. The second time you press will change to medium sensitivity, and the third will be high sensitivity. Then if you press those buttons a fourth time, it will disable gyro. The indicator light around the pairing button will change from white to blue when motion control is enabled, and pretty much anytime you have any of the upcoming settings change to anything other than the default. Next, we have joystick settings, and by default, the joysticks have some inherent amount of dead zone. You can swap from the default dead zone settings to zero dead zone mode by simultaneously pressing function and capture, and you can swap back to the default dead zone mode by repeating this input. You can clearly see what this is doing in Gamepad Tester, as we have a consistent center point when the default dead zone is enabled due to that inherent dead zone. And then in zero dead zone mode, we can see there is some variation in where that center resting point is, though very little. You can also adjust the sensitivity of each joystick by pressing function plus L3 or R3, and this setting is independent for each stick. There are 3 modes total, which Gulikit is calling 50%, 100%, and 150% sensitivity, so each time you press this combination, it cycles between the 3 modes. By default, both sticks are set to 100%, which, looking at Gamepad Tester, this essentially just gives us a circular algorithm. If we change this setting to 150% sensitivity, then we actually get a rectangular algorithm with about 16.5% error rate, and then 50% sensitivity does what you would expect, limiting the total range of the stick by about 50%. You can also easily tell which mode you're in based on the gamepad vibrations. When you change the modes, it vibrates once if you're in 50% mode, twice if you're in 100% mode, and 3 times if you're in 150% mode. Next, we'll look at the dpad settings, and by default, we have 8-way dpad input, but you can swap to 4-way input by pressing function plus dpad right. You can swap back to the default 8-way input by pressing function and dpad right again, and you do get a vibration to indicate this change, so a short vibration for 4-way and a long vibration for 8-way, and also the indicator light will change to blue when you're in 4-direction mode. Then we have turbo settings, which only apply to the face buttons and the right trigger and bumper. I assume this isn't applicable to the left trigger and bumper because they're reserved for motion control inputs, but that's just a guess. Regardless, you can set turbo by simultaneously pressing function plus one of those inputs, such as A. The first time you do this, it enables normal turbo for that input, meaning if you press and hold A, it will rapid fire. If you repeat this input, it enables auto turbo, so if you press the button once, it rapid fires until you press the button a second time to turn it off. If you press function and A again, it disables turbo completely. And again, it's easy to tell what mode you're in because the controller vibrates once for regular turbo, twice for auto turbo, and does a long vibration when you disable turbo. Next, we have the face button layout, which the physical layout matches Nintendo, but you can press function and plus to swap to Xbox layout, so A is B, X is Y, and vice versa. And the controller will vibrate briefly to confirm this change. Then if you press function and plus again, it swaps back to the standard layout, and you'll get a long vibration to confirm. Next, we have vibration adjustment, which there are a couple of different settings here. First, there's vibration intensity, which you can change by pressing function and dpad up. There are 4 total vibration levels, labeled weak, standard, strong, and off, and pressing function and dpad up rotates between these levels. Again, the controller vibrates to indicate what level you're on, so 1 vibration for weak, 2 for standard, 3 for strong, and a long vibration for off. Beyond that, there are also 3 separate vibration modes or types, and you can cycle through these by pressing function and dpad down. By default, the Elves 2 Pro is in Gulikit's haptic mode. The first time you press function and dpad down, it swaps to HD rumble mode, and the second time it changes to what they're calling rotary vibration, which seems to be the most similar to standard gamepad vibration. Again, these modes are indicated by vibration signals when you swap, so 1 vibration for rotary mode, 2 for haptic mode, and 3 for HD mode. So next we have the autopilot gaming or APG function, which is essentially a macro function, but kind of on steroids. If you hold the APG button for 3 seconds, the controller will vibrate to confirm the recording has started, and then you can press whatever series of inputs you'd like, and press the APG button again to save. All of that's pretty typical for macro programming, but what makes the autopilot gaming different is that apparently this feature is capable of recording inputs for up to 10 consecutive minutes, which seems crazy. I'm not even sure what you would use this for, but if someone can think of a use case scenario for this, let me know in the comments. Once you have a macro recorded, you can short press the APG button to play back the macro once, or you can double tap the APG button to repeat the macro constantly until it's interrupted. While the macro is running, you can move both joysticks without canceling it, but any other input will interrupt the macro. You can also export and save recorded macros by pressing Function plus APG to enter a file sharing mode, and then hooking the Elves 2 Pro up to the PC via USB, and the controller will be recognized as an external drive. You can then see the macro file in that drive and can copy and save it to your PC so that you can essentially record multiple files and swap them out when needed. So, yeah, overall, this is a pretty unique feature and is the feature that differentiates the Elves 2 Pro from the standard Elves 2, which doesn't have the APG button or macro support in general. There are a couple of other differences between the two versions, though, which actually aren't favorable to the Pro, and we'll get into those in the conclusion section of this video. Just a couple more things here. First, you can clear all of these settings we've been over and reset everything to default by pressing Function plus the minus button, and the gamepad will vibrate to confirm. You can also recalibrate the joysticks by simultaneously pressing left and right shoulder buttons, dpad left, and either the A or B button. The manual says A, but for whatever reason it also works to press B, which I found out because I'm used to Xbox layout, so unintentionally did it this way the first time, and it does work. Once in calibration mode, rotate both sticks a couple of times, and the controller will vibrate to confirm calibration is complete. The light flashes after the first rotation or so, which seems kind of strange, but I did this several times using both A and B as the face button and the button combination, and it did this every single time, so maybe it calibrates after the first rotation, but the manual does say rotate 2 or 3 times, and that also just feels more normal to me, so that's what I would recommend doing regardless. To recalibrate the gyro, simultaneously press plus, minus, D-pad left, and A, and the gamepad will vibrate to confirm the calibration. Unlike with the joystick calibration, this one does require specifically using the A button in the button combination. Then lastly, I just wanted to go over updating the gamepad. Similar to the macro sharing mode, you can put the Elves 2 Pro into an update mode with a button combination. This one is a little bit different. You do it with the gamepad turned off. You'll first connect it to the PC via USB cable, and then hold the APG button and press A to turn the gamepad on. The indicator light doesn't illuminate in this mode or anything, but you will see the gamepad appear as a separate drive on the PC. But in this mode, it just shows up as Gulikit rather than Gulikit data. You can download the most recent firmware from gulikit.com, and once you extract it, you can copy this .bin file and paste it to the root directory of the Gulikit drive. Then the controller will automatically update and will vibrate when completed. While we're looking at the Gulikit webpage, although there's no actual software for the Elves 2 Pro, you can actually adjust pretty much all of the same settings we covered on Gulikit's website without downloading a separate program. If you go to the Setup Tools section and connect the controller, you'll see this image of the gamepad and can adjust the settings by clicking on any of these individual components. So if you click on the left shoulder or trigger, you'll see motion control settings. You can click on the other inputs for turbo settings, the rumble motors for vibration settings, the thumbsticks for dead zone and sensitivity settings, etc. The only bonus setting we get here is RGB lighting for the indicator light, and here you can change both the default light color and the alternate color that's used when you enable some of these controller settings. That pretty much covers all of the customization and settings we can do on the Elves 2 Pro, so now we'll take a quick look at some testing. We'll start with polling rate, and we're doing wired first, which is going to be the highlight of this section. Gulikit advertises 1000 Hz wired polling for the Elves 2 Pro, but I've yet to get quite that high. In this test I got 872, and that's about what I've gotten in each subsequent test. The advertised Bluetooth polling rate is 170 Hz, but I'm not getting anywhere near that. I'm consistently getting around 75 to 80 Hz in Bluetooth X input mode, and I've also tested it in switch mode on the PC and gotten pretty much the same results. It's about 81 Hz here, and I'm pretty sure this is the best result I got. Bluetooth polling almost always sucks, so it's not surprising at all, but I was really hoping to see at least the advertised 170 Hz. I also checked resolution, and I had an even harder time getting a consistent linear result here than usual, which for the record is due to my hand testing, not the gamepad, but that said I consistently got between 700 and 750 resolution, which is not bad at all, especially considering the lower range of motion on the Elves 2 Pro sticks. So, conclusions. First and foremost, in the intro I described the Elves 2 Pro as a mini controller, and that's very much the case. It's much smaller than standard sized gamepads, even when comparing it to something like GameSir's G7 Pro, which itself is on the smaller side in relation to many modern Pro controllers. The Elves 2 is significantly smaller than that. Despite that, though, I do like the feel of the gamepad, both because I appreciate the familiarity of the retro design, and also it's somehow still very comfortable. I am sort of evaluating this controller on a curve based on what I've actually been doing with it, and that's definitely not playing Call of Duty or Halo. I've tested it on Switch and Mario Kart and Smash Brothers, and also played a good bit of Street Fighter on PC. On that point, I have to say this is probably the best D-pad for fighting games that I've tested since the Turtle Beach Stealth Pivot, which was an astronomically more expensive controller when I purchased it a year ago, and even now is well more than double the price of the Elves 2 Pro. And to be frank, the fight pad gimmick portion of that gamepad was literally the only thing I liked about it. As I said earlier, I've never owned the original Elves controller, and before trying the Elves 2, I would have expected to prefer the Xbox layout style of the original, but as it turns out, I love having the D-pad up top, specifically because I'm much more likely to use this gamepad if I'm playing games that are D-pad heavy. My big hang up with this controller is that I think I would actually prefer the cheaper standard Elves 2 rather than the Pro version. Again, the main advertised difference in terms of features is the APG mode, which is really interesting, but I'm not sure how much, if any, I would actually take advantage of it. As I previously alluded to, there are a couple of other differences between the two models, and the first is that the Elves 2 can wake the Switch 2 console, but the Elves 2 Pro can't. Obviously, this will only really affect Switch 2 owners, but since there are very few third party controllers currently on the market that can wake the Switch 2, it's sort of an important feature of the Elves 2 controller, and for me, the Switch 2 is primarily where I'd like to use it. The other big bonus of the standard Elves 2 is the advertised Bluetooth polling rate, which Gulikit states is 730 Hz. I had to reread that a couple times to make sure that's actually what it said, because what? I don't have the Elves 2, so obviously I haven't tested this, but if that's real, or even if it's just somewhere close to that, as far as I know, that would be the best Bluetooth polling rate of any third party controller by a lot. This feels like a pretty significant advantage over the sub 100 Hz polling of the Elves 2 Pro, because although I typically only play wired on PC, again, I'm much more likely to use this gamepad on the Switch. Of course, if you're someone who will take advantage of the macro options on the Elves 2 Pro, that might be more valuable to you than waking the Switch 2 and or a higher polling rate, since typically if you're using macros in a specific game or situation, it's because it significantly changes your experience. Regardless, I've enjoyed my time with the Elves 2 Pro and will continue to test it in some other scenarios, possibly play some retro games via emulator, which feels very fitting. If you're interested in trying it out yourself, I will have links in the video description for both the Elves 2 and the Elves 2 Pro on Banggood.com, and Banggood was also kind enough to provide a discount code for the Pro version, which I'll also include in the video description. I hope this video helped you out, and if so, please subscribe if you haven't already. Likes are also appreciated, and I do try to react and respond to as many comments as possible. I'll be doing more reviews regularly, so I hope to see you back here again soon. Thanks for watching.